An AI agent is just a clever loop of API calls. Before we build the whole loop, you're going to build a single API call. You'll see the exact moment your message leaves the computer, what comes back. And the one surprising thing that nobody tells you is that the AI model has no memory. And I'll prove this to you live. Every single thing it seems to remember, you're essentially feeding back to it. By the end of this video, you will understand what's really happening behind every AI agent on the internet, and you'd have learned to build it yourself in about 40 lines of Python code. No framework used at all. You send JSON file, you get JSON file in return. That's the whole relationship. Now, how do you use these APIs in code? In order to use these APIs in your code, you use something called a software development kit or an SDK. These companies like Anthropic and Google provide SDK, which we would use in this demo, along with plain Python. We are not using any frameworks, no LangChain, no light LLM. And this is all deliberate. You don't need a framework to be able to use this. The framework is something that hides the implementation from you. But in this code, we're going to learn that implementation from scratch. If in your code, you're going to be calling multiple APIs from different providers, you can use one of these frameworks like LangChain, Light LLM, or you can even build your own wrapper around these models. So let's write some code now. When I call the Anthropic server, I need to create a client using Anthropic dot Anthropic, and I need to provide this API key. Now this is the client. This would send a message to the Anthropic server using .messages.create. Client.messages.create is a blocking call. It does all three things in one shot. What are these three things? First, it serializes your text, your query in a JSON call. Second, when it sends it to Anthropic server, it waits for the response from the server. And third thing is it accepts the response from the server. It deserializes the response from JSON back to a Python object and accepts it in a variable called response. Clients.messages.create needs three required fields. One is the query that needs to be sent in messages. So messages is an iterable. It's essentially a list type of data structure, and we are sending out a list where we save the user query to be sent to the server. Second thing that's required field is the model that the Anthropic server should use to be able to answer this query. And then the max tokens. These are the three required fields. Max tokens, for instance, I'm keeping it 100. Then we have the third field as our model. What will messages have? So messages will have the user query. And then the user will provide the query that will be sent via messages. Messages are sent in the form of basically a JSON. Here we are sending only one message. So let's run this code. So please write your query here. The response looks like this message, right? So message ID, container none, content is text block. Hello, Shikha, nice to meet you. So text block is one of the content types. It could be a tool use block or something else. Text block meaning it just directly sent you some text. Text block has a field called text, which is the response from the Anthropic server. It specifies the model, the role as assistant. Remember that we sent the role as user, it responded with assistant. Stop details, none. Stop reason, end-turn. Stop reason is super important. It tells us why does it stop. So it says that end-turn, basically the turn ended, it sent the response. The in output tokens used, it's 29, which is well within the limit that I set of 100 tokens. And server tool uses none. Basically, I didn't use any tools within Anthropic server or any of my own tools. This simple API call has several weaknesses. It has no memory of previous conversations. It does not have access to any tools, which means it cannot perform any actions like sending emails. It cannot have access to even the externally available live data. The simplest way to resolve this memory issue is to maintain a messages array or list and append the response from the API every time you get a response, and then send it back to the API in your next call. Let's see how this would work. So, how do we work on these weaknesses that the model does not have any memory and it does not have the tools? Let's work on the memory first. We discussed that we send messages to the client via messages list. Now we send role user and then content is user query. The model responds and that's saved in the response. Response has several fields, one of which is content, that is also a list or an iterable, which stores all the content that it returned. In our case, since it was just a text block, there was only single data point in the content list that we fetched via bracket 0. Let's send this response along with the new user query back to the model because it does not have any memory of its own. And so we are providing the memory via the messages array. Let's send this memory now. Maintain an array which first contains this data point. So I sent the list with the initial message from the user query. Now I have this response back from the model and it has response.content0 as the response. So what I will do is I will add this data point to this messages list. Again, I have to send the data point in the form of a JSON. There are only 3 fields allowed in the role: assistant, system, and user. Now, since this was sent by the assistant, it becomes very important to clarify to the model with this messages list that this was the response from the assistant. And now the user query 2, I will append that also. This is the whole messages list, which has now 3 data points. One was the initial message from the user. Then we sent the response of the model. And then we added the user query number 2 to it. And now we are passing the whole messages list and sending it back to the model. And let's see now whether it would have the memory, because now we are providing the memory explicitly to the model. Now this messages list is being maintained on the client side because the server, which is the Anthropic, does not have any capability to store these messages in memory. Let's run this agent demo. My name is Shikha. Please remember this. What is my name? Okay, what is the error here? Oh, so the problem is the content that I've sent back to the model is a text block instead of the text. So I should have sent response.content0.text instead of the whole text block so that it's just a string, not an object of the class text block. This should resolve it. Your name is Shikha. This is the final response. That makes sense. Now it works perfectly. So what we did was we provided memory by maintaining the memory ourselves, since the model or the server has no way to be able to maintain this memory. Okay, so this call works, but it's still crippled in the same 4 ways. It still does not have its own memory. The memory is your messages list that you're saving at the client side. There's no memory provided by the server. It also has the same weakness that it cannot access any tools or perform any actions or even access live data. 4 problems. In this video, we almost solved the first one. In the next, we'll kill the remaining 3 problems.